welcome back, everybody, to another amazing episode of Crowning Connections. We are so excited to have our guest on today.
Everyone, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Crowning Connections. We are so excited to have this beautiful lady joining us, Tasha Mae. And she is a woman that wears many hats and has many talents. Tasha Mae, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about you.
Yeah, hi everybody. It's just an honor really to be on this show. And I think it's so awesome that you guys have created this space for women like me and other individuals just across the globe to be able to share their stories, be real, be authentic. So kudos to you guys. But again, like they said, my name is Tasha Mae, and it's not a nickname. Mae is after my great grandmother in Texas, MAE, the Southern version. And so that really is my name. Born and raised in Washington State. I was actually attracted to this because I saw the crowning and I have a very
Mhm.
strong pageant background, which started in 2007. So I've held a couple of pretty major titles: 2010 Miss Plus America, 2015 Miss American Beauties Plus, and then more recently, the world title of Mrs. Curvé Globe. And that was in 2020. I was a pandemic queen. It was pretty cool to just compete with women that could travel from all around the
Yeah.
globe during that time. One thing about me is that I've always used pageantry as a pathway to sharing my story, my mission, and my message, and what I believe that God has called me to do. My
Mhm.
very first platform was not World Peace or Save the Whales. It was Single Parents Achieving Confidence and Excellence, and the acronym SPACE, because I was a single mom and I really wanted to see those parents get off the welfare system, become independent, become encouraged in their parenthood, regardless of how they became single parents. I remember my first interview and they're like, everyone has a
Yeah.
platform. What's yours? I'm like, single parents, they're like, oh, okay, that's different. But anyway, that has propelled me into what I do today. Of course, I'm still very involved in pageantry, more so behind the scenes, coaching, producing, all those things. I also have a nonprofit called the Advocacy Queen, and that was a nickname which turned into a 501(c)(3, where I actually do in real life show individuals how to navigate systems and services and become independent. So again, I'm very honored to be here today.
That is just incredible. Your journey, Tasha, as a mother, an entrepreneur, and an advocate, it is so inspiring, and I know it's going to reach so many of our listeners. Do you think there was a specific turning point that you can put your fingers on that led you to create Advocacy Queen?
I kind of was already doing the work. One of the biggest frustrations for me as a single parent navigating just the systems and services, even here in Washington State, is there was so much red tape, honestly, so much bureaucracy. Everything was confusing. I was raised by a mother who had a father in the military. I was really blessed to have that upbringing where they taught us to think strategically, to ask questions, all those different things. So as a result, I've always been like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Let me look that up. Before there was Chat GPT, before there was all this easy stuff, I would go to the library and I would look up the Washington Administrative Codes. I would look up the
Yeah.
RCWs, which are our acronyms for laws here in Washington State, and be like, let me see if what they're saying is even correct. And then I would challenge it all. That's what I was doing from the time I was in my 20s, advocating for my kids in their schools because I had a child on the spectrum, all kinds of
Mhm.
things. And so I realized I'm really smart. I know how to do these things. Imagine how many families that just don't know. You find out later and they're like, I didn't know I could do that. They told me no. They told me this. One of the most compelling stories I share why when I launched Advocacy Queen, it reminded me of when I was 23 years old and I was sitting with my case manager in the welfare office and I'm making like $10 an hour at taco time. And I'm like, I want to go to school. I want to do more. So I presented this program and my case manager was like, no, you can't do that. And if you do that program, then you're going to lose your food stamps. You're going to lose this. You're going to lose that. And so I'm sitting here going like, but I'm trying to get off of all that. And if I get this certification, it is like a super high wage, high demand career. Well, she said no, she denied it. So I was like, that just doesn't sound right to me. Like, I mean, welfare was created for transition, like during the Great Depression. It wasn't meant to
Yeah.
be a lifestyle. So let me figure this out. So I decided to do a fair hearing, which is allowable. And I went into the library, looked up all the stuff, found out that it did qualify under the high wage, high demand criteria. And so went to my fair hearing, drove down to Olympia, which is our capital. People think it's Seattle. It's not, it's Olympia. And it's like 3 hours away at 23 years old with all my stuff, all my papers, and I present my case. And the first thing the judge asked me, he's like, who helped you? And I'm like, why does someone have to help me? I go, I really want
Mm.
to do this and I don't want to live this lifestyle forever. And so he was like, well, based on what you said, you're absolutely correct, And so they ended up overturning her decision. And then the judge asked me to not tell anybody. And I'm like, I'm telling everybody. Like, why would I not,
Wow.
and of course, back then there wasn't all this inclusivity and laws and transparency and all this stuff that's happened since 2020, right?
Mhm.
But so back then it was like, can you just kind of keep this to yourself? I said, no, I'm telling every single person that wants to do this program that it's eligible, and that was kind of the story that I was brought back to when I launched in 2022, saying, you know what, there are so many families that would have walked away and said, oh, well, I guess I'm just going to make $10 an hour and work for Taco Time forever and be struggling forever and be codependent on the system forever. And I said, no, I'm not okay with that. And so that is where Advocacy Queen was birthed from that story. And now that I'm an empty nester of sorts and all of that, I'm like, okay, now I can really tackle these people. And I teach people to do exactly what I'm able to do.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you to your willingness to go out and not settle because I think that's what happens a lot is people are already frustrated and burnout and tired and they just feel like giving up. So, kudos to you for not giving up and for continuing
Yeah.
to fight and getting the result that you wanted and now being able to share that valuable resource with others. That's incredible.
I was thinking, I think a lot of times people, families especially, if you've got young children like you did at the time, find it very confusing, very overwhelming. Do you currently now, what gaps do you see being so deeply involved with this in, housing, unemployment, the crisis systems overall that you really felt and still feel need your voice?
I live in a very interesting state. I'll be very careful about this. Where, helping people get out of cycles of poverty and seeing people be successful long term doesn't seem to be very much of a priority in my state, which is very frustrating. A lot of the systems here are built for long term codependency. It's all about more and more and more handouts. Like, how can I be more codependent? Which is very frustrating because my program literally teaches people to do the opposite, which is really true fulfillment. And if I can be at liberty to say I am, a Christian, I am a woman of God, and I know that his call in our life is to not be codependent. It is not to be struggling. We're supposed to live life and life more abundantly. And how can you even
Yes.
do that when you are trapped in a cycle, in a system that is was supposed to be there maybe to give you a hand up, maybe to be a stepping stone, but not a stumbling block and not a prison. And so to answer your question, the biggest thing that I see is that there's just kind of, instead of pathways to self-sufficiency, there's more like subsidies and there's more stuff
Mm.
that are being given to people. And so what I've been trying to show people do is how to leverage those things into self-sufficiency. So, okay, fine. If they're going to give it to you, that doesn't mean give it to you and then like use it all up and then wait, right, until you need it again. Oftentimes in the work I do when I'm helping people, whether it's with rental assistance or things, I'll notice on their ledger that it's like one agency after another agency after another agency. I'm like, have you ever paid your rent like yourself? Like, and you just see it's like this thing after thing, and basically it's enablement. So for me, like for example, in my case management program, which I call individual strategic advocacy and case management, I say, okay, before I find you a resource to possibly help you catch you up, we got to figure out how you can maintain this. So is the job that you're at not making you enough money? Let's elevate that. Let's see what you can do. Do you have a story? Okay, let's become a peer counselor. They make a minimum of $25 to $30 an hour here in Washington State. Let's do that, or whatever the case may be. Is the fact that you live in a place that is too expensive? Well, we have laws that protect you where we can possibly dissolve your lease without any type of repercussions and get you into a more affordable apartment, like long-term sustainability. So those are the type of things that I do to fill those particular gaps in. And people seem to be band-aid oriented here, which is very frustrating. I'm kind of like pull out the splinter, clean it out, stitch it up, and then we'll put a band-aid on it, some Neosporin, you know what I'm saying? Not just put a band-aid and now there's this festering wound, but you feel better about it because you can't see it anymore. And so that is really the biggest thing I see is people just want to not see things anymore rather than actually heal and deal with them. And so AQ, that's what we do. And so when people refer people to me, I said, make sure that they know that first of all, I'm not going to work harder than them. Second of all, this is for long-term sustainability. I'm not the handout organization, and the last thing I'll say is another difference about me is I tell people all the time, I go, you are like on this pathway of trying to get checks from people. How can I get this? I'm on a pathway to teach people how to be the check writers. And that's a different mindset shift,
Yeah.
right? Like you need to be the one that knows how to write the checks. Why are you trying to ask people to write you one? And so it's just a mindset shift. And it's just something I'm very, very, very passionate about because that was really the game changer for me.
You're right. There does seem to be, even I'm in Virginia, Lindy's in Delaware, and I know even here, especially since COVID, when all of those checks were going out to everyone, weekly or biweekly, and we have seen an uptick here. And people, it's like there are so many jobs that nobody wants to work the job because I
Mhm.
think you're 100% correct on it. They've just got that mentality that, hey, I can do as little as possible and still get paid out or, receive benefits. But you're right. I think somehow we've got to get in there and change that mindset and get people back to, hey, it's time to go to work and be self-sufficient and, provide
Mhm.
for your families. And you should always want to improve and have goals and set those things for yourself. So I applaud you. That's incredible work that you're doing.
Well, it's also that confidence piece, you guys, because that's
Yeah.
something I'm very passionate about, right? If you think about what I do inspiring women through the pageant industry and all of that.
Sure.
Like one thing that compelled me as a young person, I mean, I've been working since I was 14 and not because my
Mhm.
parents needed me to, but they wanted me to understand personal responsibility, right? And so that would be 30 years of
Yeah.
working that I have done. People are like, you're so young. I'm like, I've worked for 3 decades. Okay. But, but even in that, it was a personal sense of pride. I mean, I
Yeah.
just I hated seeing other people going on vacations and doing things, and I got my little $400 a month in welfare. I don't even know how people have any confidence and any pride in doing that. So another thing that's a part of my what I call advocacy self-defense, which is teaching people
Mhm.
how to navigate and advocate for themselves, which leads to self-sufficiency, right? When I teach them is that confidence piece of like you need to have pride in yourself. I had one client I was meeting with yesterday and she was talking about how she was saving up her tax refund to do all these things and the car she bought already broke down and all these different things. And I said, you know what I want to do? I want to get you to a place where you're in a tax bracket where you're not even eligible for a tax refund. Why not live in abundance 12 months a year, girl?
Yes.
Right? I would,
Yes.
and I mean, that's the space that I want to get people's mindsets to, not looking forward to being fake rich for 1 month a year during tax season. Like, why not be self sufficient all year around?
Mhm.
And so it's more about building that type of confidence and pride and how exciting that would be to buy what you want all the time, not just in January or February when you get your taxes back, right? It's just a
Absolutely.
mindset shift and trying to incentivize just an ongoing lifestyle of self sufficiency.
I just love that. You've spoken about civic engagement. Why do you believe that is so important for people, especially women today, to become civically engaged?
I'll speak from first perspective as a Black American who half my family is indigenous to the country, half were part of the Atlantic slave trade, right? And there was a period of time, right, where we weren't even allowed to vote, especially actually women weren't either. It was very close time frame where Blacks were able to vote and then women were able to vote shortly thereafter. And I think about all the things that my ancestors went through, died for. So I had the ability to just vote, have my voice heard, be involved, do things like run for office. And so I will say that a lot of my civic engagement is opening the eyes of people that look like me, as well as women too. Everybody. I want everyone to have the message. But the biggest, people I feel that feel disadvantaged by these systems are people who don't even participate in changing them. And so I have to always call out that hypocrisy and I'll say, okay, in Washington State, I love to say this. In Washington State, there's, 400 Black Americans that are eligible to vote. There's not 400,000, I'm sorry. There's not a lot of us, okay? But 400,000, right? And then only 150,000 of them are actually registered to vote. And then in the last election, only 63,000 actually voted. Yet,
Hmm.
allegedly, all 400,000 are mad about the current administration, right? So I made a case in point of like, you're mad about something that you didn't even do your simple duty of just even voting, which you're saying you do everything, you're mad about everything due to your ancestors, what they went through. But a part of what they went through is our ability and freedom to be able to engage in these processes. And if you don't like the people in charge, then change who they are, right? That's through civic engagement. That's through running for office. That's through participating. And so I do a lot of education like, hey, you only have to be 18 and a registered voter and a US citizen to run for office. That's it. You don't have
Yeah.
to have a PhD. You don't got to have all these things, so just like dispelling dispelling different stereotypes. If you're tired of how things are happening, then get involved. And I say that with women. I say that with any individual, any group that feels like they're not a part of this process. Like, then what are you actually doing though? If I ask
Right.
you, did you vote? Most people are like, oh, I'm not into politics. I
Mhm.
don't do politics. And I say, well, then it's going to do you. I mean, either way, you're involved, while you're upset. Washington State, our gas is $5.15 a gallon.
Wow.
Meanwhile, Idaho is $1.99. Just that's the difference in how states can operate. But we're upset about that. But then we don't even do our own, just little simple, like, color in that little bubble, and I've challenged people. I said, I understand like protesting and all those things are great things to do, but there's also something far less expensive and simple that you could do that could actually change outcomes. And so that's just kind of the way that I try to simplify engagement and impact. We had in 2008, I believe, or 2008, I think, we had a very, very close gubernatorial race here. And after three recounts, one of the individuals lost by like 239. Now, mind you, 200 something votes. King County, which is our largest county here in Washington State, is also the seventh largest county in the United States of America. So just to give you a
Oh,
frame of reference of how big it is. So to like when there's millions of people in a county and you only lost by 200, that's how important it is. And so I try to give those real life examples. I try to show how, us showing up to the legislative session can shift what's happening in legislature. I speak about things like, hey, we have 150 people ish in our legislature and only 60 of them were even challenged. So we have the same people making the same choices, doing the same stuff for however long. So we're getting the same results. And you're begging the same people to change. They're not doing it. So challenge them, at least give them a run for their money. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And so
Yes.
that's just like my approach is trying to bring like real life examples. If they want to, lean on the ancestors and what we've been through, well, then you need to honor what they've been through by participating in the things they fought for. You know what I'm saying? As well as the female champions that we have in the world as well. Because, like I said, they were shortly after Black Americans were they also eligible to vote. And those women who are pioneers in that movement, it is a disservice and honestly disrespectful to those who went before us to not participate in the things that people fought and literally died for us to have.
Right. Oh, that's so true and so powerful. We see that here, the same thing. People will complain, "Oh, I don't like this person. I don't like that person." That person's been in there for 20 years, but like you said, many of them go unchallenged. There's no competition at all. So you're right. At least get out there and give them a run for their money and make change. If you're not happy with it, we all have the power to make that happen.
Yes. And that's, one reason when people try to fight the 4th of July, I said, well, actually, we need to be grateful for the 4th of July, regardless of your skin color, because if we wouldn't have been freed from Britain, we would all be, subject to, King Charles right now. And it would be all about your lineage and who's related to who. We wouldn't be able to vote on our leaders. We wouldn't have a Second Amendment, a First Amendment. Like we wouldn't have any of these right, things. Even in Black American history, we wouldn't have the opportunity to even call America out on its own hypocrisy, right? You want to be free from something, but yet you're still enslaving people. So we wouldn't even been able to do that,
Right.
So it's like we have to think about when we think that we're so horrible and off. I mean, the civilians of the United States of America get the opportunity to actually change who's in charge and who's running them, to actually vote on that. In Britain, who actually used to own us, we don't get that. It's like if you aren't in the family line, you're not one of the heirs like you see in Bridgerton or something. Like
Yeah.
it's too bad. The parliament makes the decision. Like you don't even get to make a choice. We're gonna choose your health. We're gonna choose everything for you, right? And so
Right.
I'm just grateful for being in the United States of America because of that. And we really need to leverage the system that we have in place.
I love your passion, and I can definitely see that coming through. And as you were talking, one of my favorite songs is from Gloria Estefan, and one of them is one of the lyrics in there is like, "Get on your feet, get up, and make it happen." And so I feel like that's truly what you're saying. We don't have to sit around. We don't have to a certain point, kind of just be lackadaisical. We have the ability to get up and do something. Speak your mind as you can. So I think
And if you
that's
don't, you can't
yeah,
complain about it, you know?
exactly.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, you didn't even participate. Like, how are you going to be upset? I mean, I honestly, when it comes to like political conversations or any pageant conversation, someone talks about a pageant. I'm like, have you ever competed in one? Have you ever even walked on a stage before? Okay, you have. Okay, well, then we don't need to talk. You know, if people ask, say, political things, have you registered to vote? Are you even a voter? Did you vote this time? Do you even know outside of the presidential election what's happening in our state? Okay, well, then I don't want to talk, you know. And so, of course, I'll educate, but if they're being belligerent,
Sure.
I will usually ask those, questions. And then if the answer is no, I'm just like, okay, I can't. This is not even, this is a fruitless conversation, you know. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to just remove myself, but I respect you. If 7 plus 7 is 35 for you, I got you. No problem.
That's great.
It's the world we live in right now. I'm like, people are challenging simple math right now. Like,
Yes.
oh, what if 2 and 2 isn't really 4? And I'm just like, okay, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing
Yeah.
it. I'm not doing it.
Watch
Not
I
doing it.
watch your I watch your reels and your videos on TikTok all the time. I've gotta tell you, I get the biggest kick out of you, Tasha May. It's you are just you have got excellent content, but it is also so informative and it is so everything you say is so true. And I'm thinking, wow, like, you can really watch her little reels and light bulbs should be going off, from every direction, but it's crazy how many people are just like, "Oh, I don't," like you said, "I don't know what that is." Yeah, 2 and 2 is not really 4, it's maybe 8 or 10 or who knows what it is now.
Yeah.
But
And I
you
just
yeah,
figure
I
it's let those people. It's fine. Just go. No worries. Sure. Just, go for it.
And see, I love how you are, like, you're kinda more direct, but you're not coddling people in your approach, and I think that makes a huge difference because, like, I know for me, like, when I've needed to get my butt in gear, the people that I've listened to are a little bit more like you, like, "This is what you gotta do, and this is how we're gonna do it, blah, blah, blah," and walk step by step in order to accomplish it, not sit on the silence, be like, "Oh, well, if you want to, maybe you should try," you know? So,
yeah.
kudos to you for that, and, your confidence comes through, and I think that's a huge benefit to everybody that you have the ability to interact and work with.
Mm, man.
Absolutely. Well, we know you are super busy. You have founded Advocacy Queen, as we talked about, and Purpose and Presence Company, which is certainly no small feat. My hat is off to you. What do you think so far has been the most rewarding part of building these two very different but also very connected
Yes.
organizations?
Yeah, well, with Advocacy Queen is definitely being able to help people without a glass ceiling and without an overarching agency saying, nope, we need to keep them in a cycle, basically. As under other case management roles I've had, I've actually gotten in trouble for helping people become self sufficient. I've gotten in trouble for helping them find housing too fast, apparently, because the funding that they need to come in. I mean, this is real. This isn't like CNN. This isn't just like fake news. Like people really do belabor and prolong people's negative experiences to get more money. And that is just something that I can't, as a woman of God and just as a woman of integrity and as a woman who has slept in her vehicle waiting on a case manager to do their job, there's just no way. And so that is probably the most rewarding is that I can move uninhibited. If I want to take someone from sleeping outside to a new apartment in one day, I can do it and no one's going to stop me from doing that. And that's really how we should be operating is seeing people in crisis and making sure that not only are they equipped with the tools to be able to navigate in the future and have the confidence to not repeat the cycle, but getting them out of that crisis. And so I think that is probably the biggest thing that's rewarding with AQ for me. And then also I have a training program that's called Advocacy Excellence, and it's for service providers. Matter of fact, I leave tomorrow to Wisconsin to do a statewide training for service providers all across the state. And I will be showing them how to properly advocate and case manage their clients to the point of self-sufficiency and really helping them in being efficient and how effective that actually is. And so I'm really excited and honored to be there to do that. And so that's kind of another thing that's amazing is I can actually show other case managers and other people in the industry like this is actually how you're effective. Dragging things out, not responding to message, all these different things that you're doing to prolong a person's season of crisis or to create a codependency on the system with them, it's really not helping them. What is the mission statement of the organization that you work for? Are you actually doing that? Calling those types of accountability. So that's one thing that's very rewarding. With Purpose and Presence, what's exciting to me is that it is a faith-based organization. I make that very, very clear because honestly, I can't do any of this work without God. I couldn't have got out of anything I was in without God. And honestly, I pray over every person. I prayed over this interview. I pray over every single thing that I do. I put it before the Lord, and I hope that people are watching that maybe are not believers. Just know that that is my source of power, and I respect you completely for whatever yours is. But just know that I can't do anything literally without him. And so when I was thinking about all the things I've done, from pageant coaching, helping people build businesses, I'm talking over the last like 20 years, I have just been a foundational piece of so many successful people, primarily women, from executives that need to learn how to public speak, from from people that are trying to interview in the public sector, to pageant women. I've had tons of winners across all pageant systems. Brand building, people who have an idea and just don't even know how to communicate. All those different things I've been doing. God finally gave me a title and a way to kind of encompass it into something that not only can finally put like a definition to it all, right? But also allow me to be paid for my passion, because we all got bills, right? To pay. But at the same time, it is a blessing. It is a ministry for me. And I love it because I can be bold and courageous and just flat out say, we're starting in prayer for this consultation. They know it's faith based, and they know that I'm going to infuse God, the Holy Spirit, and the Bible and everything that I can into bringing to fruition what their dreams are and what their passions are and what their ultimate goal is. And so that is probably the most exciting, is that I can just really openly share my secret sauce, which is the Holy Spirit, when I'm working with people under purpose and presence.
Lindy and I love that. I can tell you that now. We've shared on this podcast many times when we met and decided, a couple of years back we wanted to do this podcast. We were all in, right? We were ready to go, but it was not God's time. And we didn't get that then maybe, fully, I don't think. But boy, when it was, we both got confirmation that it was, and we went for it. And now, like we were sharing with you, it's growing. We've got a lot of people reaching out that want to share. So we feel like he has blessed it, and it's all about being in his time and in his plan.
Absolutely. Amen.
Is there one piece of advice or like one Bible verse that speaks to you that you would like to share?
Yeah, I would say, and I believe it's in Philippians, but be anxious for nothing, but everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, make your requests known unto God. And I have to remind myself of that all the time. Tasha, don't be nervous. Don't be worried. Don't fret. No, you need to bring everything to him and then thank him in advance, right? Because he knows the plans he has for us, Jeremiah 29:11, are not to harm us, but to give us a hope and a future. So if we really believe that he's here to give us a hope and a future, I was telling my pastor this actually earlier today on text. I said, then why would I ever disobey anything he says? Why would I ever not trust him? If I really believe that, I really believe he's for me and not against me. He wants me to have life and life more abundantly. Why would I not fall in line? So anyone that is watching, even whether you're a believer or not, I just would encourage you to maybe tap in. You never know what could happen. But especially if you are a believer, if you really, believe he came and he died, for you, if you believe that he wants you to have eternal life, not just in heaven, but here, that he wants you to have live the best life, right? Then you have to trust him. You have to really be like, you know what? I'm not going to lean to my own understanding. You know what? I'm not going to be anxious. I'm not going to be nervous, because I know who created me, and he's not going to let me be destroyed. And so hopefully that encourages someone, because that encourages me. I have to remind myself of that almost every day. Like, wait, Tasha, whose daughter are you? Oh, that's right. The daughter of the Most High God. I forgot. Okay.
That's
So
right.
So were you raised in church, or is this something that you found after? And, how did your story and your relationship with God just grow?
yeah. So my father was actually a pastor. He didn't have his own church, but he was a co-pastor of a pretty big church here in Washington State. But he also traveled. He was a part of a big men's movement in like the 90s called the Promise Keepers. He
Mhm.
was the regional director for them. He's been brought to the White House to pray over presidents for a national day of prayer. Like he was just, and I My father was a lifestyle believer, and he was very involved in community as well. So he created pipelines for students to go to college, and he was about bridging the gap between suburban, white communities and inner city communities. So I follow in his footsteps in a lot of ways, just maybe with a little more rhinestones involved. But and I'm not really a fan of being in the pulpit, but if God wants me to, I will. But nonetheless, and so really, both of my parents, and my father passed away unfortunately 17 years ago, but both of my parents were in what I call lifestyle ministry because it wasn't just in the four walls of the church. They took it out. My mom was in politics, and everyone knew she was a believer. All those things. And so now I did have my prodigal son season. And for those of you guys who don't know what that is, that's when you have everything and you think you can do better and you leave and you get yourself in a bunch of mess and then you come back. And thank goodness we, our heavenly father and my earthly father, were just open arms in those ways. And I haven't been perfect, but I do know that we have a merciful and forgiving God as long as we're willing to repent and keep it 100 with him and be honest, right? So yeah, so I definitely have that foundation. More so in the last probably 2 to 3 years have I really been just finally not running from that aspect of my calling. I've always been comfortable, being in pageants and talking to people and this, that, and the third. But now just the ministerial part of it has become far more prevalent as I'm, more so embracing it and just really tapping into who he wants to be, who he wants me to be in totality.
That's beautiful.
It is, and he's definitely wow, he's fulfilling his plan through you. I mean, it is amazing to listen to what you have accomplished and your
Mm,
plans and how many lives you are changing because of your obedience to him and his plan for your life, and I commend you. I commend you for that. That's a wonderful
amen.
thing, Tasha May. It's incredible. And
Yeah.
your titles, I feel like that kinda all you've held major titles. So, do you think that from competing, being a, competitor and also winning those major titles, how do you feel that has shaped your voice as a leader in your community and also an advocate?
Yeah, well, pageantry was the doorway. I mean, I've always wanted to impact other parents and things of that nature. And I just never, the door was open because it's like, who are you? But the moment I got my first, it was an appointed title to compete in Miss Plus America 2007. I was Miss Washington Plus America. And I wrote my own press release. Again, this is pre chat GBT people. I'm a good writer naturally. But anyway, I know how to do cursive too. Yeah, back when there was real school. Anyway, so
Right.
so, anywho, but I wrote this press release. I sent it out. I was posting it places, and I remember one of my first big appearances was the governor of Washington State asked me to come and speak for Take Your Kid to Work Day. She wanted to hear my unique perspective as being a single parent taking my child to work back when we used to have that day.
Yeah.
And gosh, everything's just got away. So I remember being in that our Capitol rotunda, just a whole space filled, and I was supposed to just open for her. But when I was done, I remember her just taking the mic and saying, I don't think there's anything else for me to say. And everyone just cheered and it was on TV. It was amazing. And that was like the beginning of open doors to opportunities, to speaking engagements, to be able to go into the spaces and places I'd always wanted to, the local welfare
Mhm.
offices, the work source offices, and, different community spaces. It was amazing when I realized that the crown was a key. And that's really how I've treated every title, whether it's in ministry or whatever it is. It's a key, it's access. It's just the bottom line. Like if you love children and you want to teach them, you have to get the teacher certification, right? It's called access. And so I realized it's never been for me because I'll be honest, I struggled with like my appearance and all those things. I was never like, oh, I think I'm so pretty. Let me do a pageant. It was literally like, how can I bring a voice to the things that I really care about? And actually, I was introduced to it because I was asked to judge a pageant. It was National American Miss Washington. And someone said, you're going to judge a pageant. I knew nothing about pageants. I was 27 and I was like, oh, I'm judging Miss America. That's all I knew. Right.
Mhm.
And they're like, no, you're not judging Miss America. It's called National American Miss. But when I saw these young people that had nonprofits and they're raising money for their autistic brother and they're like these well spoken, I was like, what? I was like, I need to do this. And I was 27, right? Single mom at the time, like a size 24. And so I was like, well, if they have plus size modeling, maybe they have plus size pageants. And that's kind of how that began. And so it opened up so many doors. So a lot of people, it's funny, I've always been called like the queen as a result, which is kind of where the affinity came with Advocacy Queen. So it was like a nickname. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to make it a thing. So to answer your question, it's just been a door opener. And now I don't hold a title. I haven't in 5 years, although Mrs. Globe is amazing and they treat me like I just won almost every single day, whether I'm even this, I'm sure once I
Yeah.
post it, they're going to share it on their page. Like I just want, I mean, they're just an amazing organization for their alumni. And so that's always a blessing. But that's again, what I'm saying is that pageantry has just been a gateway to business opportunities,
Mhm.
speaking opportunities, the confidence to even go out and talk about things. And so even if people only know me as a queen, then I get to introduce them to the advocacy, right? I
That's
get to
right.
introduce them to my story. And again, it's just a complete key and access, and that's how I see it, and that's how I even train the girls that I'm coaching, that this is access, right? And you need to look at long term how this is going to, after the 1 year, after the reign, after the win, how are you going to leverage what you have been able to gain, these relationships, into the bigger picture of your mission and your calling?
You kind of brought that up. I was gonna lead into that next question. You
Sorry.
are there No, that's great. It just feeds right in. You are the contestant development manager for the Mrs. Globe system now. So how have you been able to work with the ladies that are in those divisions, for the pageant and working to expand their opportunities?
Yeah, so specifically, I'm for the Curvé division, which is the division that I won. So just for the Curvé division, and ultimately, like I get to be a part of, scouting, recruiting, and just even encouraging the women, answering those questions, making sure that they know that hey, this is something that you can do. Oftentimes, the barriers that people feel is they might see the overall aesthetic, and they're like, oh my gosh, how do I fit in there? Which I felt that way because there was nobody that looked like me at all up until 5 years ago when I won that looked like me. Okay. And so that was a glass ceiling that I was able to break. But I also am, honest with them, right, in the coaching and development process of what it takes to represent a brand. Yes, it's about empowerment, but it's still a competition, right? So just helping them understand, mentally, emotionally what that means, and preparing them in both ways. A lot of the work that I do after kind of the recruitment and scouting process, and of course being there to answer questions and things like that, is at the actual event. So I often do like a big, kind of round table with the Curvé queens, from the international ones to the ones who are domestic. And it's always really great because they want to ask a ton of questions, and my goal every year is to show up so they wish that I wasn't competing, right? And so, like, oh gosh, I'm so glad you're not competing. I'm like, yes. I'm like, but that's what it means to be a queen. It's not just for
Yeah.
1 week. It's not just for one day. It's that you show up. And it was really funny because a friend of mine's like, Tasha, girl, why are you getting all? And I'm like, because it is an interview. I don't care if they show up in pajamas. This is Tasha's brand. This is how
Yeah.
Tasha shows up.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's just about helping people understand who they are, why they're competing, what they're doing, and making sure that that remains their main thing while they're going through the whole entire process. So it's been amazing to just really reach out to women from all, especially domestically, primarily for the USA Curve competition, and just, answering, like I said, answering their questions, engaging them, and just speaking life into them. I do one-on-one interviews with everybody. I don't just do like group stuff. I don't just message. I actually sit on Zoom with them. I answer their questions. I show them things. I show them videos. I talk about my experiences, my fears. And so it's just really been an awesome, awesome role to have.
I don't know how you do it. I am just in awe.
And I was gonna say, so you have this infectious energy, you have this joy about you that just radiates. And so, again, thank you for that. But what do you do for self-care? Because, you have to have your cup, you have to be able to fill your cup up too, as much as you're pouring into everybody else. So what do you do for self-care?
Yes. So I remember when, after I got divorced in 2022, 2022? Yes, 2022. I try to like make a vast memory here. But in 2022, I was seeing a therapist like 3 days a week. But she has been so amazing. She's also a woman of faith. And so now she's kind of transitioned into like a life coach. So I still meet with her every Saturday. We usually do like a walk and talk. We'll go like walk a waterfront while we're navigating things. And I just keep myself grounded. Also, I try to participate in as many church things that I can, not necessarily like a busy hands type thing, but if there's like last night I went to a revival from a different church, right? So like whether it's, a revival or prayer calls or church services, like for me, being in a space where people are gathered and like he's there, it just lifts the weight off of me. It really does. It reminds me who is in control. And then the last thing is, okay, first thing, I did this DIY project thanks to TikTok. And I live in this little modest apartment, but I have that little back deck that everyone kind of has with their apartment, right? And I saw someone that completely made over their apartment. Do you guys know I made my own like sanctuary? So I'm talking like laid down like fake grass turf, hung up sheer curtains. I have lights out there. I built a little patio, like soft, I don't know what you call that, furniture. I watch movies out there. I light candles. I'm constantly vacuuming cobwebs because, I hate spiders. But nonetheless, it's like so euphoric. And people are always like, where are you? I'm like, my back deck. And so that is a space that I like to go in and just listen to candles, listen to worship music. And then lastly, I love waterfronts. I love the water. Like I love the water. So I'll picnic. I keep a blanket, a chair, and like a whole setup in my car. And I love to just like randomly go and sit out by waterfronts. And that's just, ultimately what I do. I mean, I have to.
Absolutely. I think sometimes we get so busy, we forget, "Oh, need to take care of me, need that little bit of downtime," and so I love that. Wow. I'm alright, I'm gonna be watching I need to see pictures of this patio
It's
that
on
you've
my
set up.
TikTok. I was so proud of myself
I've
because I
got to
don't
go
even
I'm
do
gonna
that.
go and I find that because, yeah, I love that idea. Just kind of your little getaway, but it's at home, so it's very accessible all the time, so
Yes.
I love that. That was a great question, Lindy.
Yep.
Um,
Well, as just as energetic and busy and amazing as you are, like, there has to have that time where you're like, okay, I need
yeah,
to recharge my batteries too. So, I'm glad that you have that. You have that those spaces and opportunities to do that.
Yes.
and I'm dying to hear about this. On your bio's so impressive. You were the first Black recipient of a Global Beauty Award. That is amazing. Can you share a little bit
Yeah.
about that with us?
Yeah, so the Global Beauty Awards, their first year was in 2018, and it was founded by the directors of the Washington, Idaho, Montana, USA, right? So they founded this. They wanted to create an Oscars for pageantry, and it's just grown to be such a huge, huge, huge thing. I mean, people come from all around the world. It's just been amazing. And so that first year, I was nominated in 5 categories, and the one I ended up winning was Best Crowning Moment. Which was the year that I won Miss Plus America. And that was crazy because I competed 3 times. Like I was like the first year, I was like my first pageant ever. I was second to last. It was horrible. I was such a brat too. And then my second year, I was like, okay, I sucked. I was not good in interviews. So I'm gonna focus on interview. Well, I got best interview, but I still didn't place. So it was like whatever I focused on, right? But then the third year was actually the year my father passed. And it was like a whole different reason behind why I was competing and who I was doing it for. And so I think people probably thought I was like praising God, which I was kind of, but I was more like pointing up at my dad in heaven. And so it was a pretty dramatic response. I mean, very dramatic response to a point where there's a girl behind me, bless her heart, that is always kind of stained that my crowning photo because her face is because I was so dramatic, right? She's just like, but but yeah, so that was really neat. And I actually didn't really notice that particular distinction until I think it was maybe like a year later. And someone was like, do you know that you're that first year, the only Black person to win an award? And I was like, hmm. And I try not to do like identity stuff, but nonetheless, I mean, in an industry that historically hasn't been super diverse for just, some reasons, right? It was a big deal. And
Yeah.
so I really was honored to win the award in general and to be nominated in so many categories in general. But of course, to be able to shine a light that there are people of all races and demographics that are value this industry and their lives have been changed by it.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, congratulations. That is
Thank you.
fantastic. Like just another accomplishment, Lindy. I
Yeah.
mean, I think we could keep her on here all day and we still wouldn't get to cover everything.
Yes. I definitely agree. I definitely think you're one that we're gonna have to have come back and,
Oh, amen.
because I just love your energy and your positivity and all of that. And I think you're definitely what people need in this world. And so keep shining that light bright. And you have 2 supporters here.
Do. Yes, yes. Just in like final thoughts for you, Tasha May, for someone that's listening today to this podcast and they're listening to you and everything that you've shared. maybe they feel like they're unseen or they're unheard or they are underrepresented.
Mm.
What would be one piece of advice that you would give them to walk away with from what you've shared today?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is why not you? And I say why not you because when I've seen things that don't represent me, or if see something that isn't already existing, I immediately, and maybe this is my parents' fault for making me believe I could do whatever I wanted and believe but I'm like, well then if they don't have it, then I should do it. If they've never had a person who looks like me in 30 years win this competition, why not me? And so one of the things that I when I speak and I talk about this, I say when you're shopping in a retail store, you might be like, I'm going there to get a black dress. I need a black dress for interview. That's all I need. That's all I'm going to do. I'm sure we've all purposed in our hearts to do that. But if the marketing team is effective, you're going to leave with a dress, shoes, nylons, a bracelet, a jacket, maybe a hat, a scarf, and I mean, if by the time you're done getting through the black dress session, you're just like, oh my gosh. And that's what I tell people. I said, oftentimes, yes, in society, people think they know what they want. They might be like, I want this girl. I want it like you. I want a redhead like Lindy. I want a blonde like Jennifer, or I want this, or I want that. They may think that, but it's your job if you affect. Sorry about that. My
It's
call.
okay.
Okay, we're right now.
We'll just pause it.
Okay,
Perfect.
if you if you effectively are able to, I guess, show up as God has made you to be, authentically market that person, then it doesn't matter what they think they thought they wanted. And so for me, going into the last competition I did at Mrs. Globe, I did fight those little inner battles. Like, okay, there ain't nobody, everyone's European or Asian or this or that. And then even in the curvy division, that's like they're curvy, but they're like slim curvy. And then they still look like white and whatever, like
Yeah.
it's like they're just like a thicker version of other people. And so and that's what I had to but I had to say, no, Tasha, you are worthy. You have something to offer. You have something you could represent the globe. There's women that need to hear your voice. And so I showed up and I showed out and I made myself undeniable. I made it like, okay, dang, like it would be like an uproar. The whole world would be like, okay, how did you not pick her? That's what you have to do. And so I just want to encourage those of you guys who are watching is that because of your authenticity, because of your differences, that's actually your competitive edge. Because no one else, literally,
Right.
not to be corny, no one else can be you. And you can make what you are what they want. Now, you have to want yourself first, though. You have to believe that you're actually worthy of that position or worthy of that opportunity or worthy of that role. And you are. And if this 5'10", 200 something pound Black girl can break the mold at Mrs. Globe, of all places, shout out to Dr. Tracy. I love her so much. You can do it too. I promise you, whether it's in pageantry or it's a job or it's a profession or even just stepping out and doing a business. I mean, you have something that people need and you have to believe that. And when you do believe that, then that's all you need. And then if you are a believer, sprinkle some Holy Spirit on it and then it's gonna fly.
Love that.
It's wonderful.
This has been wonderful. This has been so good. I cannot thank you enough, Tasha May, for taking this time to be with us. I know so many of our listeners are going to just love this, and you're going to probably get some new
Okay.
followers. Go follow her on TikTok, everyone. But we can't thank you enough, and your willingness to come on and share your story and share your different missions, and we definitely wish you all the best moving forward, and we would love to have you come back on at a later time
Absolutely.
when as you keep adding all these new things to your roles.
Can't help it.
No, it's a good thing though, right?
It's a very good thing.
Yeah.
Lindy, did you have any closing?
Just thank you. Thank you for showing up and being your beautiful self and being authentic. And, I also feel like a lot of times too that people say that they believe, but they don't want to say that they believe. And so thank you for, your vulnerability and just sharing how God has impacted you in your life. Because again, that's something that I think people need to hear and don't hear that often. So, and it's neat to see how much he has been moving in your life and everything. So So thank you for that. And,
Yes.
thank you for, again, giving your time for us today. And I don't know, Jen, I kind of feel uplifted from listening to her talk too. So I think
I
we needed
do.
this just as much as she's going to
We
share with,
We
with
did,
our
we did.
friends.
And it's kind of right back to that God timing again,
Yeah.
because I think we both needed that today, and we had, as you know, we were trying to get this scheduled a couple of
Yeah.
previous times, and things happened with your schedule and my schedule last week. So it has, but we needed it today in this
Yes.
moment at this time, and he knew that before any of the 3 of us did. So
Yes.
we are so appreciative of you being here. Cannot wait to get your story out to everyone, and thank you again for giving us some of your time. We know how valuable it is.
Wonderful. Was my honor. Thank you.
Of course, of course. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll wrap that up for today. But wow, what an episode. And as always, Lindy and I thank you so much for all the likes, the shares, for being a part of this podcast, for tuning in and just sharing about it. And if there's a story that you want to share with us, your story, just all unique to you, please reach out. We would love to have you on. And until the next time, be blessed, and we will see you next week.